We're also seeing this interesting aspect of the business, which we hadn't really thought of before. We typically operate floors. So in a city like New York, we have 120 different floors and across a variety of buildings. So we are in more buildings in New York than any other company, which means we touch more lobbies and more elevators than any other company. So we're starting to think of how we actually address the needs of the owners of those buildings. So if we can do something inside our space, whether it's UV lighting and different filters, different types of communication within the office, giving people more space, making sure people don't bump into each other, thinking about how coffee is served. Yeah. It's also important. All of that is just within our space. But what happens outside of it? If we're providing a safe environment internally within a Knotel location, we need to make sure that people get to that location and feel safe coming into the building, getting into the elevator. So we're working with owners of building, the landlords that we typically work with, who are our partners in providing these spaces. We're trying to figure out, how do we actually build a lobby that would function well in the post-COVID world? Mm. How do we actually structure the access to the elevator? Maybe it's something that's being done in slots. Maybe your company is given a 30-minute slot or a 5-minute slot, and people know when they need to come to the office. Maybe when they are on the way to the office, they get in line. So that elevators continue operating, but it's not a mesh of operations. It's actually much more structured.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix of flexibility, I guess, in spaces, but then also the kind of, actually you need to stay with this structure in order to be safe. I've certainly heard of organizations looking at one-way systems inside of the office in terms of how you walk around. It's fascinating. Talking about Lego, my kids bring me different Lego throughout the day.
Oh, that's beautiful.
In the office here, some sort of pony store or something. Pony store.
But I think that all of these these things we're talking about are really short term.
Right.
Except maybe this de-densification trend.
Right.
And the overall health and safety trend.
Yeah.
COVID will go away. We will at some point get herd immunity in all communities, and there will be vaccine. But this is just one pandemic. There will be other pandemics, and we simply need to be prepared for them. Not only in the office environment, but as a global community.
And I completely agree. And one of the things I'm fascinated about is actually the preferences of individual workers. If you take an urban environment like New York, for example, where some people are going to have to get used to going back onto public transport earlier than others, for example. So if you've got somebody in Brooklyn that's commuting on the F train into Manhattan, they would have gone through for want of a better word, the stigma of getting on public transport, and they perhaps would have exposed themselves to some level of risk anyway. But then you perhaps got someone else who's driven to the office in a bubble of their own vehicle, but they have very different social dynamic expectations of how close someone can be compared to somebody who's right up against somebody on the subway versus somebody that's perhaps living alone and then is coming in their car, and etc. So I'm really fascinated around how all of that's going to work out.
Yeah. I think subway usage will need to go down.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And just building on the Lego piece, because there's a really interesting piece there around kind of the usage of the space internally, but then how organizations think about their real estate of space. And I've heard, you'll be in a better place to comment on this than I, but I've heard of the the analogy being given to the way of working or the way of using real estate that you're talking about here to be similar to elastic storage or AWSification of,
Mhm.
of
Yeah,
space. So you
yeah.
able to
I
talk
mean,
about what that looks like?
yeah, we refer to Knotel and to Flex in general as the office cloud.
Right.
Just like you're sending your data to the cloud, you use the variety of different buildings in the same way.
Right. Got it. Got it. And then inside of the space, talking about mobility again, you and agility inside of that workplace. Free desking has obviously been, hot desking, hoteling has been a trend. Do you see that continuing because of this as people think about their space, or do you think we're going to go back to more permanent desks because people are going to want their defined space?
As we talked about it earlier, I think people will work in shifts, or may at least start working in shifts. I think they will share desks. I don't think that we're completely getting away from sharing. It's literally impossible. We will share restrooms in offices.
Right.
We will share faucets, and we'll share cups that are for which we drink coffee, and the coffee dispensers and snacks. I think that paranoia and germophobia will subside. So we just need to take it. We just need to get to a situation where we have clear treatments, where we have antibody tests, so people are not afraid. But just like someone who is recovering from a disease, you don't want to you don't want to have them run a marathon right away. You need to ease into even a familiar environment, and it just takes time. We need to learn how to walk again. It's almost like our legs were broken. We fell. We will survive. We may start running again, but we just need to walk and take baby steps.
Yeah. At Chargify, this has been very much on our mind, as we've heard from customers that they're not wanting to have employees touch devices that are not their own, for example. And so we're looking at moving up our product roadmap, what we call Chargify check-in, whereas you put your phone down on a wireless charger, it checks you into that hot desk, for example, and then it can designate to the cleaning crew that hot desk, for example, has been used today. Putting your phone down on a charging spot and activating your Zoom meeting in a meeting room rather than having to tap the Zoom room to start.
We're actually doing some of the same through geometry.
Okay.
We have a product line of phone booths and desks and movable walls and different types of modular conferencing, where we are introducing check-ins through mobile, where you can come in with your phone and the phone booth would know that it is you.
Great, great. Are there other types of technologies as well? You mentioned lighting. Are there other types of technology you're looking at as people ease back into this marathon, as it were?
Yeah. So with phone booths specifically, we have built phone booths which already had probably the best air quality that's available on the market. A very powerful but very quiet motor, which pulls through all of the air in a phone booth in less than a minute. So so all of the air gets recirculated, and then putting UV lighting in, so which can be turned on between usages, would really kill 99% of microbes or bacteria or other living organisms. But these are all still suppositions. We know so little about this particular virus and other viruses that may come, that we just need to do the best we can in making sure that people feel comfortable and productive in office environments.
Great. Thank you, Edward. If there's one last thing to leave our audience with today as they think about their spaces going forwards and how Knotel might play a role in that, what would you say to those people?
Well, I would say that having more flexibility is better than having less, and that we're seeing companies rely on Knotel for these dedicated, tailored spaces that are specifically professionally managed, which becomes more important in the times of crisis and in the times when you need to put health and safety considerations first.
Got it. Got it. So if people want to find out more, they can go to knotel.com?
Yes. Yes, with a K.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Edward, thank you so much for the insights, the input, some of the wisdom there. A lot is going to happen over the next few months as this all unfolds, but it's great to hear about Knotel's offerings. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Great. Edward, thanks. That's great.